right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So, Matt Miller of ESPN just dropped his first mock draft of the season, and he had the New York Jets trading up from 4 to 1 to select quarterback from Indiana, Fernando Mendoza. Now, let's break this down. Let's talk about Mendoza. Let's talk about the potential fit and projecting him to that, to the NFL as a prospect, right? Where we stand right now, which is mid to late November. But before we do, we have to take a look at the projected trade that Matt Miller's proposing here. So he's sending the 4th overall pick, the 28th pick, and a 2027 second rounder to the Titans to go from 4 to 1. I mean, for me, I just can't see that happening. I feel like it is going to require more to move up from 4 to 1. We are talking about the first overall pick here for a quarterback. I mean, let's just take a look back at last season, right? The Jaguars traded up from 5, a top 5 draft pick, 5 to 2, not to 1 to 2. And it cost again that 5th overall pick, the 36th pick, which was their second last year, a 4th round pick, and a 2026 first rounder. And mind you, the Jags were not coming up for a quarterback. That's just from 2 to 5. So for the Jets to theoretically jump from 4 to 1, and all they would have to give up is 28 and a 2027 second round pick, just feels like ultra low compensation. Like if I was a Titans fan and I got that number 1 overall pick, yeah, I would look to trade down, but you could probably get more than that. Just my opinion right now. But let's talk about the scenario. So he says Jets GM Darren Mougey didn't load up on draft capital by trading away Gardner and Williams to watch teams pick quarterbacks ahead of him. So I had the Jets aggressively move up for Mendoza, a pocket passer with great touch and timing who can carve up a defense with surgical accuracy while providing enough mobility to execute on the move. He goes on by saying Mendoza might not be in Caleb Williams' class in terms of top quarterback prospects over the past 5 years, but he's the best in this class, and the Jets have to take a swing at the position. Justin Fields was just benched. Tyrod Taylor isn't the long-term answer. Mendoza's 30 touchdown passes to 5 picks shows how careful he is with the football. For me, personally, when I look at Mendoza, he's QB1 in this class. He was my quarterback one back in mid-September, I believe September 14th. I put him up to QB1. I feel like, he just gets a little bit of disrespect because he doesn't have that upside. He doesn't look like a Pat Mahomes. He doesn't look like a Lamar Jackson. He doesn't look like a Josh Allen. He doesn't look like Caleb Williams, as Matt Miller pointed out, as a draft prospect, right? In Andrew Luck, where you're not projecting Mendoza into the NFL and saying, okay, this guy's going to be top 3 one day. This guy has the potential to be a top 5 guy. Nobody's really saying that about Fernando Mendoza. I think the hope is with Mendoza, one day he can be a top 10 guy. I would argue Mendoza probably has the potential, if everything goes right, to be like the 7th, 8th best quarterback in the league. Just looking at the landscape right now, understanding, Burrow and all these different guys that are currently playing, the Herberts of the world, the Allens of the world, Lamar, and everybody like that. And I kind of think that's why Mendoza gets written off sometimes by people that cover the draft, right? Because he doesn't have this enormous upside. And I understand the hype with upside and whatnot, but that's not a for sure thing. How many times, especially as Jets fans here, how many times have we heard the story of, we have to draft X quarterback because of the potential, because of the ceiling, because of the superstar upside. That it's one thing to possess that, but it's a whole nother story to have that upside and then for them to get drafted to the team, get put in an environment to actually have success, grow, and develop. You could have all the upside in the world. I mean, think about how everyone loved Zach Wilson, right? Coming out, Chris Sims, Daniel Jeremiah, everyone loved Zach because of the upside, because he was mobile, because he had a play style similar to Pat Mahomes back at BYU. He was accurate. He had this just crazy arm strength. But again, it's not always this for sure slam dunk to just go with the player with the highest upside, right? We can look in that same draft class at Trey Lance, who was the 3rd overall pick. By the way, the 49ers moved up. They traded in total 3 first-round picks to move up to 3, I believe, with the Miami Dolphins to pick Lance. And that was just a pure high upside type of swing at the quarterback position. Anthony Richardson more recently. Mendoza isn't talked about being the number 1, number 2, number 3 quarterback in the NFL one day. That's not his projection. But I think the floor is so damn important when talking about quarterbacks in the first round. And I feel like it hardly ever gets brought up. right? Like I'm talking amongst radio shows and TV shows and whatnot. What's the floor for this player? If everything is worst case scenario here, he doesn't have enough weapons, he's dealing with a bunch of injuries, the coaching staff might not be that good, whatever it may be, banged up on the offensive line, getting sacked a lot. What's the floor? What is this guy going to look like if crap hits the fan? That, I think, is just, it's equally as important as the whole upside argument. And I think with Mendoza, he has a pretty high floor. And I think it really starts with just the base. 6'5", 225 pounds. Good enough arm. It's not an elite arm. It's not a fantastic arm. We were just talking about Zach Wilson before. It's not Zach's arm, Josh Allen's arm, Patrick Mahomes' arm, but it's good enough. It passes the threshold of arm strength in the NFL. There's been some maybe questionable moments of like downfield plays, right? The vertical game with Indiana, because there is a lot of shorter stuff happening in the quick game, a lot of stuff happening over the middle of the field, a lot of RPOs and just kind of quick reads. But in the event that Mendoza has to throw it downfield, you're not really watching him, whether you're an Indiana fan or not, you're not watching him drop back and deliver passes saying, what are we doing? Why is he throwing that? That pass was horrible. I just don't really think it's a big part of the Indiana offense, right? I don't think they're coming into games saying we need to be this downfield vertical threat to have offensive success. It just doesn't really feel like that's the bread and butter for the Hoosiers offense. And I don't think it's fair for anybody to actually push back on the coaching staff and say, well, why don't you throw it more? They're undefeated. What they're doing, what they're calling is working. And so that's the base, right? You have prototypical NFL size where he can stand in the pocket, take hits. The dude is tough as nails. He will stand in against a blitz, take a shot, look down the barrel of the gun, and deliver an accurate pass down the field. He can see, obviously, over his offensive lineman. You have no questions about the size. And I think some people might have questions about the arm strength, but for me, he passes the threshold, in my personal opinion. And I think once you pass that, you're pretty much okay. I don't really see a situation where an offensive coordinator feels hindered on calling a deep shot, a post, whatever it is, anything down the field. I don't think, say he gets drafted to the Jets or to the Browns or whoever. I don't think that offensive coordinator is saying like, well, we have to scratch the deep part out of the game. And I also don't think Indiana's in that boat either. I just think, again, it's not a big aspect of what they do. But I think the three big pillars of Mendoza, right? The three things that he does such a great job with, and these three things are, ironically enough, very, very important for long-term sustained success when it comes to the quote-unquote franchise quarterback. The first pillar, being able to get rid of the football. He does a great job pre-snap. He can diagnose and dissect the pre-snap coverages. You always feel like he knows where to go with the football. Matt Miller pointed out the 30 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Obviously, a lot of passing yards on the season, but he has a really high completion percentage as well, coming in at 73%. If you can't read a defense, if you don't understand your own offense, you're not going to be completing the ball at that high of a clip. You're not going to be that efficient in the touchdown to INT ratio. It's just simply not going to happen. And so that's, again, the first pillar. He can understand and diagnose what's happening in front of him, which I really like. The second is, from a mechanical standpoint, he has a pretty quick release. There's been faster releases throughout the years, but it's definitely quick enough. And if you have a quick decision maker, and then from a mechanical, physical standpoint, you can actually deliver the football fast, that is enticing. So you already have two massive building blocks right there. And then the third, and this is arguably the most important, or maybe not most important, but I would say arguably the most coveted when talking about trying to land a franchise quarterback: are you accurate? It's very rare that extremely accurate quarterbacks are busts. Mendoza's the most accurate quarterback in the class. When we're talking about overall ball placement, there's very few head scratchers when you're watching Mendoza. There's very few plays and times where you're watching him and you're saying, what the hell was that? What was he thinking there? You just feel like his game is quick, it's efficient, he puts the ball in play, he understands what's being asked of him within the given offensive play, and he's also understanding what the defense is doing. You can also take a look at some other things too, like how he handles the blitz, how he handles late game situations. I think both of those areas are totally fine with Mendoza. And so I think really at the end of the day, if you want to make that Jared Goff Mendoza comparison, you definitely can. I don't think it's a 1-to-1 comparison, but Goff was someone who, coming out of Cal, hey, he's not going to be a top 3 quarterback. He's going to win from the pocket. He's not this, super mobile runner back there. He's going to dissect you from the pocket, and he needs offensive line protection. And ideally, you want to give him weapons. But if he has time to throw, if he has time to process, he can find and hit the open target with accurate passes. In a lot of ways, Mendoza is almost like the antithesis. He's like the opposite of Justin Fields, because with Fields, as Jets fans, we're watching slow processing times, a very kind of loopy and elongated release. It takes him a long time to kind of get the motion going. If he has a slant or a screen, it just takes him a long time to get the football like physically out of his hands. And then there's obviously been a pretty big question with ball placement, overall accuracy. Sometimes passes are way out in front of wide receivers, sometimes they're behind. So Mendoza just checks all 3 of those boxes compared to Fields pretty effortlessly. And I think there's this notion too of, well, Mendoza hasn't played anybody. Look at who Ty Simpson has to play against. He's going to Georgia. He's going to Missouri. He has the Iron Bowl later on, in the season. Ty Simpson has some great wins against some great competition, some, money 4th down throws, just in big time critical spots. And I definitely think that's fair to bring up, but just because Simpson has the better maybe track record of teams that he's playing against, like more challenging opponents, if you will, I think there's this narrative that Mendoza hasn't played anybody. Mendoza has walked into multiple hectic environments and has beat them. Who goes to Eugene, Oregon in the regular season and beats them? A Dan Lanning defense with NFL players all over it, and not to mention having Dante Moore on the other side. But who does that? Who goes into Penn State? Who goes into Iowa all in the same year? Not to mention the game early on against Illinois. What was that, 63-10? You feel like they've won in every single fashion, right? They've won in the day, they've won in the night, they've won at home, on the road. They've had multiple blowouts. UCLA, Michigan State, Maryland was another blowout, right? Let's just pull up the schedule and just look at the sheer dominance that Indiana has put on display this season. They've also won close games. I mean, again, focusing on that Penn State game, was it perfect? No. But nobody's saying Mendoza is Andrew Luck as a prospect. Like, we can't expect absolute perfection every single time he drops back, especially over the course of an entire college football season. We can't just sit there and wait for the guy to mess up. Now, of course, we do have to be objective and call it like we see it as the season unfolds here. But, for Mendoza to hang in, keep Indiana in that game, and then to deliver in the clutch, deliver in that final drive, that's what it's all about. So I think Mendoza as a prospect is very, very interesting. But here's the deal. Even though I really like Mendoza as a prospect, and I think his fit with the Jets would be pretty good, this is under the assumption that we spend some money in free agency, we add maybe another wide receiver, we upgrade safety, D-tackle, edge, interior offensive line. AVT and John Simpson are both free agents, potentially. Maybe we go after one of the best free agents on the market, Tyler Linderbaum. Maybe he re-signs with Baltimore, but I don't know. We could get a massive upgrade at the center position. Bottom line, I like Mendoza. I like the fit. Here's where I think it gets a little sketchy. It's when we start talking about trading up. Because the New York Jets, we've all watched how the season has unfolded. It's not all on one player. The Jets are not a quarterback away. We need help at a lot of positions here. A lot of them. So if we are trading away draft picks, it's just, and granted, we have an excess of draft picks. In the Matt Miller scenario here, I don't really think, I think the Jets would have to give up more than just one extra first and 1 second. Because, even if that's the package, the Jets would still have an excess of draft picks, right? Because we would still have the 2 2s this season, and we have 2 1s in the following year. So, on paper, the Jets would be getting their hopeful franchise quarterback, and they would still have their 2 2s this year, as well as having 2 firsts next year. So it could potentially make sense if that's the way you want to look at it. It's not like some sort of, LA Rams moving up to the top of the draft to draft Jared Goff. It's not like Washington moving up for RG3 back in the day. What was that, 2012? Where you're just sending these massive packages. 49ers coming up for Trey Lance. Cleveland Browns trading for Deshaun Watson. Like, you're not going to be shipping out this humongous draft haul and saying, well, we have no picks for the next 2 years, 3 years, no first rounders. That won't really be the case here. Again, in this scenario, assuming that Tennessee wouldn't want more. But that's the big question for me. I don't want to trade first round picks. That is the gold standard of adding talent that not only has the potential to become superstars in the league, but they're also coming in at really, really cheap numbers, all things considered. Now, of course, you have to hit, and you can definitely argue, okay, well, the Jets have not had much luck drafting players, whether it's in the first round or second round, over the last 20 years. Agreed, but it's a brand new regime, and I think based off of what we've seen so far, I'm looking at these first round picks and that extra second as this is the pathway to get us out of the rebuild. This is the jump start that the Jets need to get us to a spot where we can be like Baltimore or Buffalo or Kansas City or Detroit or Philly, where we're in the mix every single year. Yeah, we might not win the Super Bowl every single year, but we're respectable. If we're not winning 9-10 games, it's a disappointment. I think that's, you got to walk before you run. That should be the goal first. Build the foundation, build the culture, add a bunch of talent. And as that stuff starts to, as you start checking those boxes, now all of a sudden the Jets could actually be a really, really big time threat in 2027, 2028. If you start trading away all these picks, let's just say for Mendoza, and the Jets pull a Jets and they just say, please save the franchise. We're not going to get you a veteran backup. We're not going to get you a lot of weapons. We're going to let offensive linemen walk in free agency, so you're not going to have great protection. Breece Hall's going to walk. Do everything for us. Please save us. Yeah, that's not going to fly. Not going to fly at all. So that's just my 2 cents. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I love Mendoza. I really like the fit with the Jets. But if we start talking about trading up, I don't really know how far I'm willing to go with my draft picks. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks so much, and as always, go Jets.